To the next quotes here. So I came across these yesterday. So Patrick Mahomes does an interview with our friend Peter King, and he's talking about chasing Tom Brady. And he said this about the Super Bowls. Well, 7's a lot, but I'll strive to get as close as I can. To win 7 Super Bowls and be in 10 Super Bowls, it's crazy to even think about, even for me today. The other stats kind of come with it. I knew at Texas Tech I put up a lot of stats, but didn't win games. When I got to the NFL, I knew I wanted to be a winner first, try to win Super Bowls, and give my team the best that I can. Look, the simple truth is this. Mahomes is off to the kind of start that engenders this kind of comparison. Brady is the greatest of all time. That does not change in 5 years, no matter what. But Patrick Mahomes is on a trajectory that makes perfectly legitimate asking the question, can he become the GOAT? In his first 5 years, he's the 4th quarterback ever to win multiple MVPs and multiple Super Bowls. Tom Brady, for the record, didn't do that till his 10th season as a full-time starter. Now, it's worth pointing out, Brady played until he was 45. Yeah. He won a Super Bowl at 43. So
it's insane.
It's insane. And it's never.
Can I just ask a question? Can we have the graphic one more time?
Put the graphic up one more time. What's the question, Harry?
It's not even a question, it's a statement. Damn, that boy good. Oh, my goodness. They both good, but damn, Patrick Mahomes is good.
He is good. Well, if you would extrapolate on that thought a little bit, what is it?
Yeah, I think when you look at the trajectory that Patrick Mahomes is on,
yes,
I don't think it's going to take 7 Super Bowls for him to surpass Tom Brady as the GOAT.
I
really don't.
You know what you're doing? You're doing the LeBron thing right now. I have sat there on the NBA and listened to this. LeBron doesn't need 6 rings to catch up with Michael. How many will it take? This is becoming the LeBron-Michael debate.
Listen to me, Greeny. In his first season, Patrick Mahomes as a starter, the man threw for 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns.
Right.
Tom Brady didn't eclipse a 5,000-yard season till later in his career.
Right.
Patrick Mahomes has 2 in his first 5 years as a starting quarterback, along with 2 years in his first 5 years with single-digit interceptions, 2 MVPs, 2 Super Bowls, 5 straight AFC championship appearances.
No, you're right. Look, here's the reality. Everything you're saying is right. Here's the reality of it, Tim, is that to compare anyone at this point to Tom Brady is wrong because he's accomplished more than anybody has, and Patrick Mahomes isn't even 30 years old yet. So that's worth saying to begin with. It is also perfectly reasonable to say that Patrick Mahomes is off to the best start to a career that any quarterback has ever been off to. No quarterback in the 100 and however many year history of pro football has ever begun his career as well as Patrick Mahomes has. So if that continues, and that's a huge if because there are a million factors that will come in, then it is perfectly reasonable to think, well, he could be as good or better than anybody ever. Is that a reasonable way of looking at it?
Yeah, it is, because, look, to say, look, chasing 7, it sounds crazy.
Yeah.
But then you look at it and you're like, look, he's off to a pretty good start with that. And, oh, by the way, much like when we looked at the Brady situation, he was, paired with Bill Belichick. Look, Patrick Mahomes is paired with Andy Reid. Andy Reid's 65 years old. A lot of these coaches coach until they're 80. If Andy's going to coach for another 15 years, like, you'll get me on board with it, because I don't believe there's a better offensive coach that's existed in this era of football. In fact, I don't really think it's close. And so, with that, I think that matters. The only thing I would say, just when it comes down to championships, is this. Look, Brady won 7. He's the greatest of all time. I get all that stuff. When it comes down to a venetary kick or a defensive play at the end of the game, look, you can be the best, quarterback in football easily for a whole season, but whether or not you win the Super Bowl, can end up being, does a defensive guy make a play or does a kicker make a kick? That's why, look, I don't believe he needs 7 for someone to say, look, he's the best quarterback of all time if he has an amazing career, which we think he'll have.
So I hate when everybody does the LeBron situation, because for me, it will always be MJ, right?
Speak on that, girl.
But
we both wear Jordan. Say it louder for the people in the back.
But when I look at Tom Brady, you want to say, everything has to fall into place. Like Brady had, you look at the roster, you look at luck, just the way the season ends up. But when you take a step back, we seem so desensitized to how great Patrick Mahomes is already.
Yeah.
Like, he makes the extra. It's like, oh, that's Patrick being Patrick. You said he's not even 30. That to me is, actually a reason why he might just do it. Because not only does he have Brady drive, he actually has otherworldly talent. We haven't seen somebody like Patrick have it all. And I think it's hard to say that he will be better than Brady because we've seen Brady do it for so long. Yep. But if there's somebody that can do it, why would we ever doubt Patrick Mahomes?
We continue here, and you've seen Yates all night and all day and everything else as the Fantasy Football Marathon continues. Field Yates is here with us as we get set to help you get your rosters ready. And we've been talking this morning about Dalvin Cook, Field. And so from a fantasy perspective, we understand he's not going to be the only really good back that the Jets have. So where does he get drafted this year in your fantasy draft?
Yeah, first of all, Greeny, I am wondering, have you booked an Airbnb and a potential rental car for Las Vegas for the Super Bowl in February? Because I'm noticing a pep in your step this morning that suggests a Lombardi Trophy is in your future.
Absolutely. I'm actually considering taking, just redoing my residency there. We'll see. One way or another. How about Dalvin from a fantasy perspective? Because I need to take him.
Okay, well, you can take him probably a lot earlier than I would, Greeny, as I have Dalvin Cook in my updated running back rankings as 31st overall on my board. And the reason why that number is so low is because your Jets have a superstar running back in Breece Hall, a second-year player, obviously, coming off of an ACL tear. But what Dalvin Cook affords the Jets the luxury to do is to slow play Hall a bit out of the gates. But make no mistake about it, this team is going to have a much more committee approach than we would have thought maybe 2 days ago when Dalvin Cook was not headed to become a member of the New York Jets. But I think as Breece Hall gets back to his normal self and close to 100%, I think he's the more talented and more explosive player, and he will be the Jets running back that you want to roster and start in fantasy week over week.
So to be clear, you would take Hall before you would take Cook if you're doing your draft here.
That's correct. I have Breece Hall right around running back 19 right now. That number dropped a bit, obviously, with the signing of Dalvin Cook, but there could be a sneaky silver lining for those that want to draft Breece Hall because it's possible in the second half of the season, when he is back to the player that we saw last year, that his talent is just too much for the Jets to keep off the field, and he ends up being a guy that we rank inside our top 10 every single week, despite the presence of Dalvin Cook, and you could be getting him on sale as right around RB 19 or 20.
Okay, I will be taking them both. Then my question is, I'm going to take, if I had the first pick in my fantasy draft, I would take Garrett Wilson. Who should everyone else take with the number 1 overall pick? What a gem you are. Garrett Wilson, a totally reasonable pick for diehard Jets fans like yourself, Greeny. I would instead take Justin Jefferson, who, how about this, last year basically led the NFL in like every important receiving category, not just catches and also yards. He also led the NFL in terms of route runs and snaps played. He had the most highlight reel plays, it felt like, amongst all wide receivers, the most dominant player at the wide receiver position through 3 years in NFL history, Greeny. Actually got unlucky last year in terms of touchdown production. Had just 8 receiving touchdowns. That number could have been more significant. There are a few things that you can count on in life. You can count on Justin Jefferson, who should be in for yet another monster season for a Minnesota offense that, A, loves to throw the football, and they might be better on defense, but they're certainly not good enough that they're going to be able to avoid playing a bunch of shootouts this season. And then and I'm asking this seriously because this is not, is Aaron Rodgers QB1? Where does he rank amongst quarterbacks?
All right, you're allowed to put the earmuffs on here for a second, Greeny. I've got him as quarterback 14, and I think Aaron Rodgers is in for a bounce-back season this year. I know. Am I allowed back on Get Up after this segment? We'll find out. Stay tuned, people. I've got him as quarterback 14, though, and here are the reasons why. Aaron Rodgers, I think, will be a much better player. He's got a renewed energy and zest for the game that I think will pay off on the field, but there are a couple of factors that are pushing him down my ranks. One, he is not nearly the running threat that some of the players well ahead of him in our rankings are. You've got guys like Lamar Jackson and Justin Fields and even Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence that are very good athletes that will add something with their legs. Moreover, the Jets do have good weapons, but it's not the same level of weapons that pocket passers like Joe Burrow are playing with, maybe even Tua Tagovailoa. So Aaron Rodgers at quarterback 14, a serviceable starter coming out of your draft, but doesn't have the upside that I think the guys well ahead of him sure do.
Bring that camera with me over here. I need to cleanse the conversation of that moment just having taken place. I'm sorry, Aaron, that he said that. I apologize on behalf of Yates and the entire Yates family. All right, Field, thank you. Despite that, you're doing an outstanding job.
Well, Dalvin knew that Mike Greenberg was his ultimate fan.
Yeah.
And so he said, I have to come to Florham Park because that brings me closer to Greeny. Listen, the reality is that the Jets made it clear all along that they wanted him. They told Dalvin, where you would fit in perfectly here. But bigger than that, Aaron Rodgers said, bro, come to a team who's building something. We're building a championship team. And I think not just Aaron saying it, but Aaron actually making the decision to give back money so that the Jets are in a position, not just now, but again, later in the season when trade deadline comes, maybe there's options for them later to add to this roster. And this shows that, I made the joke earlier that the saying is, Jesus is the reason for the season. Aaron Rodgers is the reason that people want to come to Florham Park now. Florham Park is a destination. It's not just a place where you're like, oh, same old Jets history. They don't care about that anymore. So now we'll see. They have the pieces. We'll see if they're able to put it together.
Well, that's what it feels like. I mean, and Tim, you put it perfectly earlier this morning. Tim Hasselbeck is with us, for those of you just joining us. I won't steal your thunder. How did you put it? Because I think it was the perfect way to describe it.
Aaron Rodgers changed everything for the Jets. Look, Dalvin Cook doesn't end up there without Aaron Rodgers, between the money and the fact that you probably feel like you're chasing a championship. And, you just have to go back to prior to the Jets signing Aaron Rodgers, they were entertaining Derek Carr. Look, Derek Carr is a good player. High expectations in New Orleans. But this stuff doesn't happen if Derek Carr is the starting quarterback for the New York Jets. So, yeah, there's no doubt that Aaron Rodgers, being with the Jets, restructuring his contract in a way to be able to sign other players, is what is creating all this excitement and also creating the opportunity for guys like Dalvin Cook to end up with the Jets to ultimately chase the championship.
You said it exactly right, Tim. You said that this morning, and it definitely resonated with me. And then when you just said the word same old Jets, I'll just briefly try and explain this to fans across the country, because I know that everyone doesn't know the history of the Jets, of course, the way I do. Same old Jets is a phrase that is used around that team all the time for decades and decades, and literally one man ended it. No one will say that. I don't know if they're going to win 11 games this year. I don't know if they're going to win the Super Bowl. I don't know how any of this is going to turn out. But they are not the same old Jets anymore, and Aaron Rodgers is definitively the reason for that. So in that regard, that might be the most important thing he has brought. Now let's talk about what it means on the field, Harry, because at the end of the day, that's where the proof will be. What does Dalvin Cook mean to this team?
You're talking about a guy, a running back, who's a Pro Bowl player. A guy that can make a difference on your offense being inserted into the lineup. And when it comes to a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, I think the trust factor plays a major role in this. And Dalvin Cook being in the same division as Aaron Rodgers for so many years, when he was with the Green Bay Packers and Dalvin was with the Minnesota Vikings, he had a front row seat seeing how Dalvin Cook could play the game at a high level. Also, when you look at a guy like Breece Hall, who's coming off an ACL trying to come back, it provides you depth at the running back position, so he doesn't have to rush back. And I know that's something he probably doesn't want to hear, but sometimes you got to cut off your finger to save your hand. In the long run, it may be good for a guy like Breece Hall. Having that depth in the running back room, also being able to learn from a guy like Dalvin Cook because he's had so much success in the National Football League. So I think this is a good signing for the New York Jets, and it gets them closer to their common goal.
Yes. There's a problem when you have too many quarterbacks. Or I can see where that can be considered a problem. The old expression was, if you have two, means you don't have one. To me, with running backs, you can't possibly have enough. And they will figure out a way, Rodgers will figure out a way to make that work. We talked about that part of it a little earlier. Tim, let's talk about the actual weapon that Cook is, because you made a good point earlier, Harry. Cook doesn't just run with the football. He catches the ball out of the backfield very effectively. Just from a quarterback's perspective, Tim, give me a little vision of what you think Dalvin Cook can actually mean for an offense.
Yeah, look, he's much more of a three-down back than some of the other backs that we look at in today's game. The reality is he's a physical runner. He can be a goal line back. He's been a short yardage back. He has breakaway speed, still has it, and he's been very good in the passing game. You just look at his time in Minnesota. Obviously, got a clip here of Kirk, checking the ball down to him. He's heavily involved in the screen game. So, look, he's not somebody where you think, look, there's only certain times you can use him. Like, obviously, Ezekiel Elliott's in the news. He's a situational back at this point, in my opinion. That's not the case with Dalvin Cook. So Dalvin Cook literally can be he's our true number one back, and we don't have to have certain situations where we need to take him off the field. That's important for an offense.
It's worth pointing out, he just turned 28. If you're wondering how old Dalvin Cook is, he just turned 28 years old. Final thought on this, Kmart.
I think if you are Breece Hall, if you're any of these running backs, you understand you got to look at the bigger picture. Dalvin, yes, he may take snaps away from you, but what will it mean later in the season? Will you be playing in more meaningful games? I will say, going back to something you said earlier, though, Greeny, about Aaron Rodgers changing the same old Jets.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers had one foot in that retirement grave. He was thinking about it. He's like, I'm almost there. But I think the same old Jets, honestly, it changed with Garrett Wilson and Sauce and Brees and these young kids coming in last year and being like, I don't care about the Jets' history.
I know
that I can win. But Aaron changes the organization from the outside. I think now people are like, oh, okay, the Jets have the quarterback because they had the pieces. Aaron Rodgers came there for a reason. He could have retired, but he's looking at this young team saying, they could be special with me in there. So I think the Jets from the outside world now, as that graphic we showed earlier that just killed their Super Bowl chances.
Yeah.
You know, I think everybody's looking at them like, okay, maybe the Jets could have something.
Yeah, I don't want to get into a syntax discrepancy. Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.